Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. This week, we hear from Christian Taylor, current defensive quality control coach for the Buffalo Bills. In this episode, Coach Taylor discusses the importance of making and sustaining good connections, having a willingness to do what is best for the team, and creatively adapting schemes to fit the skill sets of your players. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Taylor.
Coach Taylor, what's happening, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mario. How are you?
I'm doing really good, man. Super excited about diving into your journey here, man. It's super interesting. You've been from coast to coast, per se, and all in the middle, man. So just excited to get to know more about you.
Yeah, appreciate your time and look forward to chatting.
Yeah, well, let's get into it, man. So I always have the pre-podcast chat, and obviously something super interesting once you got done playing at William and Mary. But always start off with, when did you decide you wanted to be a ball coach? What was that point in your life, and how did you know this was your calling?
Sure. No, I've been playing football since I was 6 years old. It's the greatest team game in the world, and love it to death. Right after college, I was debating, do I want to coach and make this my life? Or do I want to be a physical therapist? And knew right after college, if I was going to do grad school, now is the time. So I went to a summer session of PT school, and football season rolled around and training camp. And I was like, I belong on the field and with the guys and with the team.
Yeah.
So that one season without it, I got to travel and go to different football games and actually be a fan and a tailgater for a season. And right after the season, Coach Laycock, my former head coach here at William and Mary, brought me on staff, which I'm very appreciative of.
Yeah, so it was kind of a quick step away and a quick step back, and that step back obviously is typically what I follow up with on the podcast is just that first job is typically kind of hard to get, without the experience. A bunch of guys that are just got done playing football are all trying to get these jobs with the only experience that they play football. So getting that first gig is tough, but for you it was a little bit easier because you were able to kind of join the staff. So in 2008, you joined as the tight ends coach, restricted earnings. So, definitely kind of a, I don't want to say low man on the totem pole, but, don't have a
You
huge,
are.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. But, you're in that role. How was that transition for you from going from player to coach? Sometimes it's eye-opening, just the stuff that kind of went on in the background that you didn't really realize.
Sure. One, I was super appreciative of Coach Laycock for bringing me on board and giving me the opportunity. He did not have to do that, and I greatly appreciate him for doing that. I learned a ton that first year, especially with the opportunity to coach the tight ends. Playing quarterback in college, you focus obviously a lot more on the pass game. You got to know some aspects of the run game.
Yeah.
But coaching the tight end, I really got to delve into the run game and the techniques involved in that, and obviously staying in tune with the pass game. So it was a great opportunity to learn a different side of football and then just learn how college football coaching in general works.
Yeah.
Now, Coach Laycock had been here for 39 years, was one of the best to learn from, and had a number of incredible, great coaches come through here. So I was just blessed to be able to join that group of people. Also got to coach the kickers too. So
yeah, that's right.
That was a fun experience too.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to tap into that real quick. But the tight end part of it, that's interesting. You kind of mentioned, obviously, it is an obvious statement that you made, but to kind of dive into that, you all of a sudden are immersed into techniques for blocking. Obviously, I'm sure you were on top of all the pass concepts in terms of getting your guys open from a tight end standpoint. But, where did you go to make sure that you were giving those guys some high quality coaching, just making sure your tools were sharpened so you had a good tight end room?
Sure. The biggest guy I leaned on was our O-line coach at the time, Bob Soldrich.
Yeah.
He was here for a number of years and passed away a few years ago and miss him daily. But he was a huge part of our success here in the William Mary football program. So leaned a lot on him and didn't know a lot of other guys outside of the profession at that time.
Yeah.
most of the knowledge came from him, and wanted to say the same coaching points and say the same things that he would be telling the offensive lineman.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always interesting, especially when you talk to quarterbacks, because, as a tight end, they catch the ball, they block, they do that. So if you play tight end in college, you probably can go hop in and coach multiple positions. Like quarterback, I mean, how many times did you block over your, 20-year playing career, or however long you play, don't block very much.
I was more than willing to.
Absolutely.
If I were a little bit bigger, I'd been a D tackle by heart.
Oh yeah, you were always down for the contact, huh?
I was down for any reverse where I had to block the D in. That was always fun.
Yeah, always the little crack back on them. Yeah, for sure, man. Well, no, that's awesome that you immediately go to the O-line coach who's storied there and kind of knows the stuff. So also the holder part, right? You threw that in there. So the specialist part. Now you held for the team, right? Is that correct? You were the holder.
Sir.
So you kind of had that unique tie-in to the specialist anyways. But when you start talking about, deep snapping mechanics and things like that, and, just working with the kickers per se, how in tune were you with the techniques and stuff like that? And how did you make sure you were, once again, giving those guys the best you could?
Sure. It was a learning process, and talked to a couple of different kicking coaches in the area, and also worked with our current punter and kicker. And it was definitely more of a learning process, and definitely more of a guide, and talk through it together. We'll look at the practice film together and work on the issues and mistakes together.
Yeah.
And after the couple of years, felt I understood the basic fundamentals of kicking. By no means was I a kicking expert.
Yeah. Right.
But,
right. No doubt.
But yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So I will ask the question here. Like, I mean, oftentimes that first gig for a lot of people is, sitting behind the scenes, breaking down a lot of film, maybe depending on the level, sometimes you don't get very much hands-on with the coaching and having to learn blocking techniques in the run game, and let alone kickers. I mean, some guys can go a full career without having to know what the kickers have going on. Like, how did that help your career? Maybe you never thought about this before, but how did it just kind of getting out your comfort zone almost ASAP? I mean, it'd been super easy just throw you in the quarterback room, as an assistant,
Sure.
and you'd have been sitting at home. But just to get out your comfort zone so quickly early on.
I guess looking back at it, been very fortunate to, one, work at a variety of levels of football, which we can talk about more.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
FCS, the Power 5, and then having a variety of roles and responsibilities. Some of the roles, aren't fun to do, but whatever, if you're helping your group of people and team succeed,
yeah,
that's why we do what we do, and more than willing to do it. So obviously learned a ton. At the time, FCS stats back then didn't have as many coaches as some do now. So did everything, did all the grunt work, but also got to coach a position. So very fortunate to get to coach a position while also doing all of the grunt work that's required to succeed.
Yeah, no doubt. I've all the podcasts we've done, I bet I've said this 100 times. So the reoccurring listeners, I apologize. But that was one of the beauties, in my opinion. I started my career early as a D2 GA, and it was phenomenal because I broke down the film. I lined the field. I did help with the laundry, but I also had a room. I also got on the road and recruited, and so it was just some early things that you get sometimes at the when you're not doing a Division I FBS GA that you get in some of those other experiences, man. So that's great. You got that, and then so the following year you end up in the quarterback's room, kind of back at home. What was that transition like? And if you compare this up with the other question here, because I did want to ask that. Some of these guys are still your teammates. Some of these guys were in the locker room when you were a player. How did you handle that part of it? And then how awesome was it to kind of be back in that quarterback room in your comfort zone after being uncomfortable for a year or so?
Sure. I guess the first part about coaching some of the guys that you played with, one, I think that goes back to how you handled yourself as a player, and did your teammates respect you?
Right.
And was fortunate to have put myself in a good position to have mutual respect for both parties. So that was a very easy transition, and no issues there at all. As far as coaching the quarterbacks, in all honesty, when Coach Laycock told me he's giving me the quarterbacks, I was nervous as all get out.
Had to be.
Because he was a QB's guru. He had always coached the QBs. And he's telling them he was giving them to me. I'm like, oh crap. Like, he's going to be looking over my shoulder every day.
Yeah.
but no, it was great. He guided me, and it was great learning experience. Very different coaching the position than playing it. A lot of similarities at the same time. And we were fortunate enough to have a great year, one of the best seasons in school history. Made it to the national semis and had 11 wins, and it was a great experience and had a good time doing it.
And old R.J. Archer made you a heck of a ball coach, huh?
Good players make you good coaches.
That's right, man. That's right. Well, you kind of mentioned something that I don't think I've ever really tapped on the podcast, but I've been in some situations when I was bouncing through the profession myself where, it never came to fruition, but I was interviewing at a place where the offensive coordinator was the receiver guy. He's a receiver guru, and he's going to definitely be maybe kind of tuning into your drills, or the head coach was the receiver guru or running back guru, depending on where I was. And I never personally witnessed that, but I've talked to coaches where it's like, it's just a different type of pressure when the OC turns around and says, like, hey, why are you doing this drill, man? What are you hoping to get out of that? And you're always kind of questioning yourself, or maybe not. I mean, what was that process like for you whenever you got the guy that's been the QB guy, but he's staying on staff, but he's also going to be kind of right next to you, especially in that critical role?
Sure. I think all good coaches and good people want to be pushed and driven to be better, and always willing to learn. Yeah. So I'm appreciative of the opportunity and learned a lot from it, and wanted to be coached and critiqued and told what to do. I'm still hoping. I'm glad when people do that to me now, and I hope that continues forever.
Yeah. Now, what was the situation for him to kind of put you in that role to be the quarterback's coach all that time? Was he just trying to be full-time OC, or how was that playing out?
Oh gosh, that'd be more of a question for him. Okay. It was later in his career. I think he was trying to transition to a little bit more of a CEO type of approach.
Okay.
But
yeah, okay, all right. I didn't know if it was a big staff conversation about better ways to do that, or they're trying to develop you. But anyways, it sounds like it was fruitful for you in your career to be able to have that experience early.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Kind of talked about that first gig being tough to get, and obviously, going and being a good player. I'm assuming, like you said, what type of player are you? Sometimes it's easier for those coaches to hire the guys that they can trust come in and do a good job. And so, I won't say it was very difficult for you to get that job, but you got it. You did a hell of a job. But now it's kind of your first time stepping out a little bit from the program, and I say stepping out, I'm talking about going to the other side of the country here. In 2010, you get the opportunity to work as an office assistant at San Diego State. What was I guess what was the process for you to, number one, be in a running for a position like that? Obviously, y'all just had a fantastic season there at William and Mary. I guess what was the situation around you getting away from William and Mary and then going across the country, and how did you get the gig?
Sure. So I had started working on my network. As we all know, that's important doing this profession. Something as a younger coach I did not do a great job of, but was working on connecting with as many people as I could. My current wife, or my only wife, lived in San Diego. Okay. And her family was out there, so I was trying to make some connections specifically in that area of the country. And then Coach Brady Hoke and Coach Al Borges, lucky enough to give me the opportunity to come do a QC with them working with the quarterbacks.
So how did, if you can give more detail on that, like, what was the process of, we just say the term often, and like, I feel like I know what that means, but there's definitely coaches out there. It's like, all right, how on earth did you get a hold of these two, like, legendary coaches for them to get your opportunity?
Sure. There's a coach there, the GA at the time, Brad Wilson, who's now at the University of Indianapolis. I had met him at a convention, I believe. Okay. And he put me in touch. Said that, they were looking for a QC and got me in touch with Coach Borges. Went out there and visited with them and ended up getting the job opportunity that way. So again, via a current GA that was on the staff that put me in touch with Coach Borges.
Okay. And now this is your first time stepping out, and actually, because once again, you did that semester, I guess, off, and then you're on the staff pretty quickly there. So I would assume you didn't have to interview for that role as a tight ends coach at William and Mary. So
no, sir.
And obviously didn't have to interview for the quarterback's job. So this is your first time actually kind of going out and interviewing per se. What did you do to make sure you were prepared to go out there and impress? Because that was a job that you wanted, right?
Yeah, I just had pretty much every piece of information and video clip ready, having no idea what they would want to discuss.
Yeah.
Just ended up sitting down, talking ball, watching a little bit of film, drawing some stuff up on the board, and it seemed like a good fit from a personality standpoint, a knowledge standpoint, and what they were looking for that position.
Yeah, was it much crossover in terms of offensively what y'all were doing, or was it just more like you just knew your stuff and they were impressed with your type deal?
There's a good amount of crossover.
Yeah,
there's a good amount of crossover. Yep, I know. I learned a ton of football from Coach Al Borges. He was, old West Coast style offensive coordinator with the West Coast terminology, and they were still doing that at San Diego State at the time, specifically with the pass game stuff.
Okay.
So there is some carryover from what we were doing here at William & Mary with what they were currently doing.
I got you. And so were y'all doing the West Coast whole deal out there at William & Mary as well prior to it? So
conceptually, there's a lot of similarities. The verbiage was very different.
The verbiage was different. Okay, yeah. I still lose sleep at night because that first job I was talking about as a GA, like we were doing the West Coast, Miles Davis run and shoot stuff, but it was all that West Coast terminology, man. And like as a young GA, man, oh my gosh, that was some mouthfuls there. But I learned so much from being in that offense, or kind of been around that stuff early on. Yeah. So that's awesome, man. And so you get there, man, and what was just that experience like? Kind of that change, really stepping from an FCS level to the FBS level, just probably seeing some of the subtle differences, the amount of scholarships, maybe how you travel, all those kind of things, and just the experience in total. How was that?
Yeah, great experience. First opportunity at the FBS level. So just seeing how things operate from a daily standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, from a travel standpoint, it was just, just a step up from where William & Mary was.
Yeah.
And been very fortunate to have a lot of success at the different places I've been, working with really good people and coaches. And we won the Poinsettia Bowl that year, and that was their first bowl win. I think it was since 1969. So a long time for that program.
Wow.
Then it really took off after that season.
Oh, that's kind of when you pinpoint, because they, as far as I really remember, just keeping up with San Diego State, they just always have been good. But that's around that time that they really started getting it rolling. I'm looking here at my notes, and 4 NFL players that played on that offense that year. Now, for you personally, most I'm trying to think about how old you would be at this point in time. You're probably what, 25?
I just turned 40.
So you just turned 40. So at this point in time, what are you're probably 25, 26 in this at this time frame?
Yeah, so probably 25.
About 25. So at 25, most guys that are walking into an FBS program, the only way they gotten significant experience where you've had some rooms and you've been in charge of quarterbacks for a Division I offense at this point in time, where most of the guys that probably that age maybe have done it at high school, but man, you walk in with a pretty significant experience, but you have to peel yourself back, right? Because you don't have a position anymore. How was that? Not not necessarily from a negative standpoint. How was it from a positive standpoint to be able to step back and just be behind the scenes and just watch ball, because you hadn't got to do it like that at this point, right?
Sure. I probably learned more X's and O's from Coach Borges than I have from anyone in my career.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest positive from that job. And then Coach Brady Hoke was one of the most genuine coaches anyone will ever meet, and got to see how his methodology and how he treated players and coached players.
Yeah.
So between those two things, amongst with working with some other really good coaches on staff, was a huge benefit. And I think it's important everyone understand the role that they're in and do whatever's asked of them to help the team succeed.
Yeah. I love that, because that's kind of the second time you've said how important those just roles and being good at those roles is. So that clearly you value that. Now, and clearly you value that by the next thing I'm about to say here, because you were office assistant there at San Diego State. Coach Hoke gets the opportunity to go to Michigan, and sometimes it's probably easy for him to take some of these full-time guys on the staff, but you end up being a part of that group to head on over to be offensive analyst there at Michigan. What was that whirlwind like of, hey, Coach Hoke got a new job, what's next for me, what's happening, what do I need to do? Like, what was that process like?
Gosh, anxious, nerve-wracking. Did I do a good enough job? Did he like me? Like, right. all the things we all wonder when our head coach get different jobs. So it was super nerve wracking. But just, again, very fortunate that he decided to bring me along. And that was a heck of an experience to see one of the best programs in college football history and just seeing how that operated. But it was very nerve wracking during the transition process.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, we kind of dive into that process, right? Because you go to the Poinsettia Bowl. The coaching carousel cycle just kind of shifted here over the years. But I would imagine he had already been named the head coach of Michigan between the end of the season and the Poinsettia Bowl. I don't know that for sure. I'm speculating, but is that?
I think the Poinsettia Bowl was like December 23rd that year, and I think he got named around like January 10th or something.
Okay, so there was some time. It was some after the season, so he accepts the job. No offense, but the first thing is like, I need to make sure I take care of Coach Taylor, right? I mean, obviously he has to get down there, do all that kind of stuff, right? So what was that waiting period like? And, and what are you doing at that time frame, right? Because you have worked extremely hard to kind of get to San Diego, closer to the current wife and closer to their family. What does that next couple weeks look like?
Sure. Coach Rocky Long, who took over for Coach Hook at San Diego State, offered me a role to stay on, which again greatly appreciative of. So was working there, and then helped with the transition. He hired Coach Andy Lugwood as the OC to replace Al Borges.
Okay.
So I was there with Coach Lud for I think like his first week and a half, 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I got to sit down with him and talk a lot of ball. So I just kept working there and. Was pressing on there until got the call from Coach Hope.
Okay, yeah. So that's awesome, man. You were in a good situation regardless. You weren't scrambling or anything like that for the most part. Well, so obviously you kind of tapped in a little bit into just the experience at Michigan to be a part of one of the historic programs when you start talking about college football. Just obviously won a national championship this year, but at that time frame, Sugar Bowl champs. Some relatively quick success. What was you just think, man, a couple years ago you're going this physical training route, and next thing you know you're sitting here in the Sugar Bowl. Like, how surreal was that? And just what was the genuine experience like for you at Michigan as a coach?
I was worked with a great group of people, which makes going to work every day fun, and learned a lot from them, and it just made it a lot of fun. And when you're having a lot of fun with a group of people, you're typically going to do really well. And players we had that year were awesome, smart, motivated, wanted to do big things with their life, and wanted to have a great season. Yeah. Got to work with, again, was still with the quarterbacks, and Denard Robinson. That was his junior year that year.
Oh, yeah.
Had just been coming off an incredible sophomore year. And that was the first time working with a QB like him with his skill set.
Right.
Which was a blast, and getting to see how you adapt and tweak the offense to fit the skill set of your player, specifically your quarterback.
Yeah.
He was famous for, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he takes off and gets 80 yards. You're like, great job.
Yeah.
But the fastest guy I've seen in person, I think, still at this point.
Yeah.
And just a great person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't even link the Tom frame up with him. Obviously, that's a name that should resonate with a lot of guys. How electrifying that was the guy that he didn't tie his shoelaces up, right? Yeah, that was one of the things about him. But you start talking about the West Coast offense, some of your background, like you're talking traditional pocket passers, I'm assuming, and your traditional reads and all that kind of stuff. You talked about these big learning things at each spot. Obviously at William and Mary, you were just learning to be a coach and you learn very fast because like we talked about, you got out your comfort zone, and you talk about just learning X's and O's, how huge that was there at San Diego State. What was that big learning thing? What was the theme of learning while you were at Michigan?
Yeah, offensively curtailing the offense to Denard's skill set.
Okay,
it was cool. Like, keeping the core concepts the same, it was just how do you build it? How do you build the quarterback run element to it?
Yeah.
How do you build the different read elements and option elements off of it? So that was first time seeing that, and that has greatly helped me throughout my career.
No question.
Because it's really hard, like in a system, to have in college football 4 quarterbacks with the exact same skill set.
Yeah.
So how do you build the offense conceptually that can fit the different skill sets of your quarterbacks? So that was probably the biggest thing from a schematic standpoint I learned. And again, just seeing how from a Power 5 level, you operate specifically from a recruiting standpoint. And this was in 2011 now. It's still very different. Like, I was the only offensive QC. We had one offensive QC, one offensive GA, one defensive QC, one defensive GA, and a special teams QC. That was it.
Yeah.
A football standpoint.
Right.
It's not what it currently is today.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, at that point in time, that's about when I was bouncing around pretty heavily in the profession. And I mean, like, it was a lot of schools that just didn't have QCs. You know, some of your lower P5s, they just couldn't afford to have those type of guys on the staff. And so, yeah, it was such a tight knit group and a lot more responsibilities for certain guys on the staff. So, yeah, just kind of a much different feel when you start talking about offensive analysts and quality control at that point in time. Now, I can only imagine, just based off a little bit that we talked about that time in Michigan, just Sugar Bowl champs, electrifying quarterback, just some of the stuff that you learned. Then you get this opportunity to kind of head back out west to go to University of San Diego. What was, once again, the process of leaving Michigan to take that opportunity to I guess at this point in time to truly be your first full-time role, full-time pay, and all that kind of stuff? What was that? What brought that about?
It was a really, really hard decision. It wasn't a no-brainer, and I think a lot of us have those experiences in this profession. Yeah. I wish there were like a more set progression and path in this profession, and it's flipping all over the place.
Yeah,
I'm probably the last person to ask in regards to how do you specifically climb the ladder in this profession. I've got no clue. So just try to treat people right and do the best job you can wherever you're at. But just talk to different coaches, specifically Coach Hoke and Coach Borges, about it. And it was an opportunity to go coach your own position group. I wouldn't, it still wasn't the greatest pay in the world. But it was really an opportunity to coach your own position group, get closer to where a lot of our family was, specifically my wife's family. And it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time.
Yeah. So I guess the question would be for me is, how does the opportunity even arise? Or, they call you, did you see the opportunity, you go reach out for it? Like, how did that go down in terms of just initially the contact?
Sure. It's probably a common theme, someone knows someone that you're working with. So Coach Ron Carragher was the head coach at University of San Diego, had been with Al Borges.
Okay.
I think at UCLA, don't quote me on that. But they had kept in touch, and Al highly recommended me to Coach Carragher. So I went out there and interviewed. That was like my first interview for a true position job, a half day to full day interview.
Yeah.
And ended up getting that at the end of the interview.
What was, if you don't mind, I mean, you don't have to get into the crazy details of it, but like, I think some people would be surprised that I mean, there's some people that like you were just to the point you were just making, like they can be 40, you can be, offensive coordinator at FCS level, but just how they got there is so much different than how you got there versus me being 40, so much different how my career kind of was going. It's all so different, but there's some people that can be 40 and never really had to interview ever, when you start talking about those full day interviews, like, man, I've explained it to some people just how not intense, I guess is the word, because you start kind of getting in that zone a little bit, but just the amount of stuff that you cover over the course of that day was, what was that like for you? Just sitting down, just literally talking ball, talking philosophy, talking this, talking that. Obviously, you had some other roles there as a recruiting coordinator and things like that. So, what was that like for you? That experience of just a long, full interview.
It was a blast. Like, really connected with the offensive coordinator, who was Tanner Engstrand, who's now the Detroit Lions pass game coordinator, and had a great year. And really connected with Coach Carragher, the head coach. And heck, I could talk ball all day with anyone. So just making sure it's the right fit from a knowledge standpoint and a personality standpoint. And I had a lot of respect for the University of San Diego and what they had been doing with that football program.
Yeah.
My wife went to school there, and then our youngest son ended up going to school there too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
well, let me ask you this question here. You kind of said fit a lot, making sure it was the right fit. Obviously, oftentimes you start talking about that, you're thinking it's San Diego, making sure you're the right fit for them. At any point in time, especially as you don't have to leave Michigan, I would imagine. I mean, maybe you did at that point in time, I don't know. But you got a good situation in front of you. You're a hell of a ball coach at this point in time, kind of proven at a young age. Are you at that point in time where you're also making sure they're a right fit for you? that I'm making a solid decision. I'm gonna be around good people that we can be successful. Is that a part of your interview process? You interviewing them?
Yeah, it definitely goes both ways.
Yeah.
And there's no way you get a good feel for someone within a one-day interview period. You're going to get the best of everything.
Absolutely. On both sides, yeah.
You always want to know how are people going to react when you're losing or when things aren't going well or when you're mad. That's the most important part. But we love this profession, and we are at work so much with each other.
Yeah.
You need to be around like-minded people.
Correct.
That have the same aspirations and same work ethic and same goals. If you're not, and I've been fortunate not to be in the situation, I can imagine it creating rifts and differences and making it hard to get all your arrows going in the same direction.
Yeah. Well, we'll kind of dive a little bit more into San Diego because you're going to get another stint there. But just real quick, what was I never typically do this, but I kind of like having a theme of each one. But what was the theme of first time having a room legitimately to myself with the pay, and now I'm starting to branch out to some other roles. You're a recruiting coordinator. Just what was that experience like? Those 2 years at San Diego, that first round.
Sure. So getting to coach the running backs for the first time, so learning, mastering that craft.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to coach the tight ends, had an opportunity to coach the quarterbacks. Now I have an opportunity to coach the running backs. So I was just trying to learn as much as I could about every position. So been fortunate, I've coached every position on offense except the O-line. And heck, I'm open to coaching defense at some point. You never. But appreciated that opportunity. From the recruiting coordinator standpoint, I just learned a lot from how everything outside the football building works, from a compliance standpoint to a budget standpoint to a mission standpoint, financial aid standpoint. So got connected with a lot of different people on campus that I had not had that experience with before.
Yeah.
So learned a lot, I guess, from the administrative side of things in that role.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, me and yourself got a little crossover, where we actually coached against each other in 2016, but the uniqueness of the Pioneer Football League, right? Because the FCS experience at William and Mary's, the ball is the ball, and all that stuff is the same, but in terms of scholarship, non-scholarship league, right? So that was also a little bit unique, being a recruiting coordinator at a non-scholarship FCS, one of the very few in the country, right?
Yep. You definitely have to target the right student athletes. Again, this is for every college in the country. You got to target the guys that are the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And
that
takes the most time to figure that out.
Yeah.
So
no doubt.
Every place has its challenges. Every place has its pros and cons. So there we did a great job utilizing the pros and finding a way to work around the cons.
Yeah. Well, we said we'll definitely dive into San Diego and their success a little bit more here, but you break away for a couple years, right? You get this opportunity to go and be the OC, do everything, it looks like, right? Be the OC, be the recruiting coordinator, strength conditioning coordinator. I guess once again, the process. How did that come about? Obviously you're starting to make decisions. Are you married at this time? Have you and your wife got officially married at this point?
We were not married officially. It took me a long time to convince her to officially marry me.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, but she's a part. I'm assuming she's a part of some of these decisions.
Oh,
right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, for sure. Right. So you come to San Diego, you go to Michigan, you're back in San Diego, and then now you got this opportunity in Illinois, right? Yeah. So I guess before we dive into how it came about and all the details from a football standpoint, this opportunity arises. What's the dialogue with the wife? Just saying, hey, this is a tremendous opportunity. Where do you go from there, conversation wise?
I could talk a long time about her because she is a rock star, and I would not be sitting here without her. And I think every coach in the country could say that, but yeah. She is, oh my goodness, I love her to death. I don't think she hasn't missed a game, we think, since about 2012.
Wow.
Home and away. So she travels all the way games. Even at San Diego, she'd fly out East Coast, Midwest, and to all the games. Fly out to Davidson.
Yeah.
She'll cook here whenever we scored a certain amount of points, she'll cook the whole offensive staff dinner for the week.
That's awesome, man.
Our two boys love football. Her dad's a football fanatic. He was so happy when I finally got to meet him. He said, "You're the one. That's it. This is done."
That's awesome.
love her to death, and couldn't do any of this without her.
Yeah.
So she's also my biggest critic. She's the first one at the end of the game. What the heck were you thinking here? So she's awesome.
Yeah.
But she was fully supportive of it. And when I went out there, for the interview, she went with me to kind of check out the lay of the land in the schools because our boys moved with us at that point. So she was fully supportive of it and glad we could do it.
Yeah. So, as far as the opportunity arose in itself, like kind of once again, how did that go down? Obviously, at this point in time, you've done a lot of stuff offensively, but you hadn't coordinated yet, and this is your first opportunity to coordinate. Once again, quite a few things, but what was the intrigue in it? How did the job come about? And what was your thought process about taking it?
Yep. So Coach Trevor Andrews, who was a coach here at William & Mary while I was a player and then coaching, knew the head coach at Illinois Wesleyan, Norm Esch.
Okay.
And he was the one that initially put us in touch and recommended me for the job. So again, it goes back to knowing the right person at the right time at the right place.
Yeah.
Which is a big part of this thing. So talked to Coach Esch, met him at the convention, talked to him at the convention, and then flew out there for an interview with him to see everything. And the interview went really well. And at the end of the interview, offered the job.
Yeah. And so, obviously, man, you go through this profession and you're just gaining all this experience, and then at some point in time it clicks. Like, man, hey, offensive coordinator is the next thing. Like, the preparation, obviously, like you felt prepared to take it. What were some of the lumps? Maybe something. I hate lumps because it sounds so negative. But what were some of the things that as you took over that role that was kind of like, man, I wasn't ready for this. This is not something I've thought about. This is not something that I've done, and you had to kind of acclimate. What were some of those things as a first year coordinator?
Yeah, I think you learn the value of how important communication is, and to always over communicate, because you need the assistant coaches to know what how you envision things to get done, and they have to portray that and communicate it to the players. I think so. That was probably one of the most important things to learn. And then there was a little bit different. Like we had 3 full-time head coaches. You had the head coach, and then the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator. That was it. And then you had a GA on offense and a GA on defense.
Oh, wow.
And the other coaches were part-time coaches that would have day jobs that would come, for practice. So I think that even overemphasized the communication piece of it, getting them all the necessary information to relate to the players.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you may have had a more traditional setup prior to as an offensive coordinator, like, you had your San Diego role prior to being an offensive coordinator, when you were at San Diego, kind of had that role prior to, like, it'd almost be like a challenge, right? But it seems like it would springboard your ability to be able to communicate. So whenever you got, these roles, later, probably made you a little bit better communicator, just because that's pretty unique, right? Where you just got these guys that they're not sitting there, game planning at least, from 9 to 3 o'clock. They're just at their other jobs, and then all of a sudden you're trying to relay all this information to them, right?
Yeah, I've always tried to, any non-ideal situation that you're presented, try to utilize it to make you better some shape or form.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus complaining about it and can't change it, so make it work.
Amen. Now, speaking of that type of setup, that allowed for you to kind of have multiple roles, right? So once again, you're a recruiting coordinator, but interesting one is strength and conditioning. So how did you balance all that? How did you make sure you were knowledgeable and good to just handle all these roles?
I was probably the skinniest strength coach in America that year. So definitely did not look the part. But again, just talking to the strength coaches I had worked with prior and combining it with their current setup.
Okay.
So those two avenues were primarily how I put it together.
Yeah, I got you. And so you do that from 14 to 16. Once again, a kind of a unique setup, but as you mentioned, man, you take some of those things and let it empower you to be even better down the road. You get the opportunity to go back to San Diego. What was the situation that made that possible, and why did you choose to go back?
Yeah, again, another tough decision. The hardest part about leaving places, like, we pour everything we've got into our players. At least I know most coaches do, the good coaches do, and you cry like a little baby anytime you got to tell the guys that you're leaving.
Yeah.
You know, because they understand why, but then a part of them is like, well, why do you got to leave? I hate that part of the profession. I wish we never had to do that. So looking forward to the day you don't have to leave.
Yeah.
But it got offered the pass game coordinator job, and here we get to coach the receivers. Again, something I had not done. Again, had the family connections out there, and Coach Dale Lindsay has been one of my favorite head coaches to work for. Love him to death, and then got to reconnect with Tanner Inkstern out there too. So it was the right move at the right time with the opportunity to be the pass game coordinator coaching the receivers.
Yeah. Well, that's at that point I think is when I was on the other side of the field of it. You guys had a heck of a team, and that program was just honestly kind of in a league of its own when you start talking about that Pioneer League. You alluded to it a little bit. If anybody's not familiar, it's a FCS non-scholarship league, but it's literally coast to coast. I think as far west as San Diego and as far east as Poughkeepsie, I think is the city from Marist. And I mean, and it's just teams all in between, probably a little bit more East Coast heavy and Central America heavy, but yeah, so it was a very interesting league, super competitive, but you guys kind of were in a situation where you always stood out above the rest of us. I think it's maybe evened out here over the last couple of years. But what was the kind of the key to the success for you guys over there? Just to, I don't know, just be kind of a step ahead of the rest of the league, especially in that super expensive school and area as San Diego is.
Yeah, I guess I can speak to what we did there. I don't know how to compare it to what everyone else was doing at the time, but yeah. we had a group of people with an elite work ethic, an elite drive, incredible accountability to each other. Coach Lindsay was your old school ball coach.
Yeah.
Played in the league for a few years, was heck on the Browns with Jim Brown. You know, he'd tell the story where he tackled him in practice. I think he was a rookie and the whole team just about beat his butt.
Yeah.
Like, do not touch that guy. He just instilled everyone being a hard-nosed, disciplined football player where you do the right thing, whether you feel like doing it or not. And that carried over to a daily basis to our entire program and team.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys there had a chip on their shoulder. You know, they were slightly under-recruited, didn't receive those full scholarship offers. Most of them didn't. Yeah. They were hair too short, 10 pounds too light, ran a 4.8 instead of a 4.6.
Right.
And those guys worked their tail off and wanted to prove the world wrong. And we did so a number of times, which was fun.
Yeah. I mean, you just talk about it probably, all these stops are special for the reason you just mentioned at the last stop, just saying the goodbyes, the people that you meet. But sometimes just the success and just the growth that you have, it can be special. And once again, I just met you prior to the podcast, so I don't know you from Adam, but just looking at what happened, number one, on the field, just the quality of football teams that you guys are putting on the field, being from the Pioneer Football League, as difficult as it is to go show up in a FCS playoffs and knock out some teams in the first round, and then watch you go from position coach to co-coordinator to offensive coordinator. Just seems like probably a pretty special time for you, right?
It was awesome. It was a blast. And again, we had some really good players, and we just had a lot of fun every day and enjoyed going to work every day and enjoyed working really hard together. And it was a ton of fun. Yeah.
And I like asking this question right here, man, is 2018, 2019, you're the offensive coordinator, the guy, it's no co-coordinator at this point in time. You're the offensive coordinator. What was the difference between 2019, Coach Taylor, and 2014, Coach Taylor? That first year, Illinois Wesleyan offensive coordinator, and then that second time around in that first year, like, what were you a little bit more prepared for that second time around?
Good question. I think the biggest thing would just be the big picture organization of the offense from a staff responsibility standpoint.
Yeah.
How you organize meetings, how you organize install meetings. When did you meet as a group versus when did you meet as a position? Having all of your situational aspects of the offense properly installed and when. So definitely all the things in regards to the big picture organization of the offense.
Yeah.
And then obviously play calling, that takes time to some longer than others, but there's a knack to it.
Yeah.
And learning how you're always focused on the next play. and the next few plays after that, and all the different possibilities that could happen. So the only way you get good at that is by doing it.
Just by doing it, yeah, straight up, just the experience of the experience, right? Just getting it. So yeah, man. Once again, it's time for another transition, right? Not that you weren't there long, because right, this is probably one of your longer stays. From 16 to 20, you're there, and you grow, you kind of continue to get elevated each year. Then you finish your time there, and then you head back over to your current job, right? Which was a little unique, right? Because you come in as I'll let you explain it, right? You end up being a running backs coach, though, but just kind of explain that situation there.
Sure. Again, it was super hard to leave San Diego. Another really tough decision because we loved it there so much, and our youngest son was in school there at the time. So it took a special opportunity to leave there because of how much fun we were having and the success we were having. The opportunity to come work at your alma mater, not many people get that opportunity. Yeah. And that was something I could not say no to. And wanted to come help this place make history and achieve things it had not done. We did that at San Diego.
Yeah.
One playoff, first FCS non-scholarship team to win a playoff game, broke a lot of the records there.
Yeah.
That Coach Harbaugh and his staff had set. So felt like had made that place better and was ready to come help my alma mater do that.
Yeah.
And then what was the second part of the question there?
Oh, I guess just a little bit of like the uniqueness of when you came in and you ended up being working with the running backs. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, definitely unique. I know when I first interviewed with Coach London for the job, it was for the OC QB job. And then before Coach Marion ended up leaving, they had shuffled some positions on staff. They thought that was the best thing for them to do at the time. And Coach Matt Johns was coaching the QBs, and he hired Coach Jack Armstrong to coach the tight ends. So he called me up and offered me the job. I was like, absolutely. And we talked about being the running backs job. And I'm just a ball coach. I'll coach any position needed that whatever suits the team best.
Yeah.
And I tell Matt Johns this all the time, so I'm okay saying this publicly. I asked Coach Lyon, I said, well, how good is the QB coach? Because that's obviously huge, right? Super important.
Yeah.
So a guy here and Matt Johns did a heck of a job coaching him. He's a great person and a great coach, and we were glued at the hip for a while as we all learned the offense.
Right.
So it was another unique challenge / something different for me to coach the running backs while coordinating. I had coached the running backs. I had coordinated. I had not done it both at the same time, which presented, the different factors to it.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, I kind of asked a question about the first year San Diego offensive coordinator, just kind of how to relate it back to your first year in Illinois Wesleyan. I want to ask this question, and there literally might not be an answer there, so don't feel free to just be like, I don't know about that, Coach. But what from an offensive coordinator perspective, what was the difference just been back at your alma mater? Like, I mean, I know ball is ball, and I know the willing and wanting to win. That doesn't change regardless of where you are. But I mean, was there a little bit of an edge? Just this is the green and gold. This is where I play my ball at. Was there anything different from that standpoint?
Tough question to answer. In executing the job, no. But I'd be lying if I didn't say there's an extra sense of pride.
Right. Yeah.
They get me to work at a place that I'd already been here for 7 years prior.
Yeah.
And all your former teammates and former workers and people from the area, like, coming to see you and texting you and calling you, hey, we're fired up. Like,
right.
That's just a unique experience.
Yeah. Just a little something different to it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know the last couple of years under Coach Laycock didn't go how he wanted or anyone wanted. And, when Coach London came in, and he had a great reputation, heard nothing but good things about him, and wanted to help this program get back to where we had it.
Amen. Now, just kind of now we're in our recent times here. I just know bouncing through social media and stuff like that. One of the things that's really been talked about from an offensive standpoint for you guys at William and Mary, just some of the creativity that you kind of brought here over the last couple of years here, and where do you kind of attribute maybe some of the just creative stuff that you've done here recently?
Sure. I think it goes back to, again, every place is different, and understanding how the place is set up and your roster and how you practice and how much you practice and how much access you have to the guys. There's so many factors that go into what you decide to do on offense.
Yeah.
So we've taken the approach. We do a little bit less of core concepts than we've done in other places, and just try to find as many ways as possible to do that.
Yeah.
So hence that's where the creativity and presenting things differently to the defense, where we're doing more here than we've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, I meant to follow up with this question here. Was there any unique take from, you know, because you're back at quarterbacks officially now, right? And so I'm not saying that's typical, because I do know a fair share of guys that are OC O-line guys or OC receiver guys, and obviously your slight majority is OC QB guys. But was there any unique takeaway from, you know, looking at that from a different lens? You know, being the running backs coach, was there? I don't want to say advantage, because I doubt there's many advantages when you're not dealing with a quarterback. But was there anything that was good that you could take away from it as a positive?
I think one of the biggest positives, I've been during the game on the field while calling plays, and it was much easier to rotate the running backs being on the field versus in the box.
Okay, I got you.
I know that's a pretty specific answer to your question.
Oh yeah, man, but I totally get that. Yeah, man, yeah. I was a running backs coach, honestly, at Davidson, and you know, we were in this real crazy situation where we had a bunch of injuries, and so we had a converted slot receiver that I guarantee you he didn't weigh over 130 pounds, and then we had this just 6'2" bowling ball, and they were, when you start talking about the polar opposites of guys, man, and so it was like power, and I'm like, God dang, my 130 guys out there about to get smoked, and then it's, you know, some type of pass concept, and my 6'2" guy that couldn't catch was out there, and so it was always hard trying to balance that. And so once again, I mean, I probably respect that quote probably more than anybody dealing with that 1 year. So yeah, definitely I'm sure a unique time, but once again, making that a positive. Now, just to fast forward to, you know, kind of our last question here, man. I've totally enjoyed this, dude. Like, you've had a awesome career, and sometimes you're in it, you don't really get to just really realize where you've been and all the awesome stuff that you've done. But man, you've had a heck of a career, and you know, you said something in the podcast like, I'm not the guy to ask about climbing the ladder, because yours is unorthodox, but everybody's is, man. And you know, you've done a heck of a job climbing through the ladder, and it was kind of nice to see you get your flowers. And I know your staff and your players have a lot to do with this award, but it's kind of nice to see you get your flowers here at the AFCA in terms of the being the AFCA Assistant Coach of the Year. What was that like for you? Not necessarily about getting the award, because that's not going to be your first, not going to be your last, but more the fact that the coaches vote on this. People that have lined up against you, people that have known you over years, have said, "Man, that dude can get it, man. He's a heck of a coach." What does that mean to you?
It means a lot. It means a lot, and to be respected by your peers. And there's a ton of coaches in this profession I respect to do a great job that were deserving of the award too. Heck, maybe more deserving. We both know football is the greatest team sport ever.
No question.
And it's crazy how many individual awards are associated with the sport.
Right.
You know, I understand why, but no individual receives an award without the team success. So I can't say that enough, but I'm very appreciative, and they're just very appreciative of the recognition.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, you know, definitely from my standpoint, man, I always love when we get some really great guys and ambassadors of the game that do get this award, because hopefully some people listening to this podcast and say, this guy's doing it the right way, you know, has been through the profession and is well respected from all his peers on all of his stops. And, you know, this is why you kind of sometimes end up in that seat. So we appreciate what you're doing for the great game, man. Much love for Coach London, and he's done a lot for us here at the AFCA as well. But before I let you go, you know, if you've got a social media account you want to plug in, coaches keep up with your journey, maybe ask some follow-up questions if possible, please feel free to do so.
Sure. My Twitter handle is @CoachChristianT.
Okay.
That'd be the best one to follow.
All right, sweet, man. We'll make sure to link that in the show notes and make it easy for everybody to find you. And once again, man, about an hour of talking, and that was probably the funnest part of my week so far. So I appreciate you coming and sharing everything that is your career, and look forward to seeing you continue to flourish, man.
Well, if you're ever out in Williamsburg, Virginia, come on by. We'll talk some ball.
Man, I'll do it in a second, man. All right. I appreciate you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Warner.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams in thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.